What's up, Ivies? We're gonna be doing something different today. I'm gonna show you all my process on how I make my comics. So we just gonna do a little simple step-by-step of how I do it. You know, I got a comic out on Webtoon now called E-Kings. So I've been doing this for a few months, I'd say, is the appropriate amount of time. Yeah, a few months. Y'all gonna see how I do it, and maybe you'll have something to take away from it. And if not, at least maybe you'll enjoy the video. But before we get into that process, you gotta get the green.
Can't say how I'm feeling inside. I wanna be sealed, but got too much pride. I wanna be sealed, but I really heal. Don't really like heal, but I tell you I tried. I did everything else but cry. I smoke all my weed,
a lot of y'all may be here because of the podcast solely and not even for the art video. And there was someone that did comment on my TikTok, you know, for me to make this process. And the crazy thing is, I actually did make this video and upload it, but it didn't work. So this is gonna be a different version. But you may be already watching my Patreon, so you may want to subscribe. Beyond that, if you aren't, once this video drops, if you're watching on YouTube, you know, because you can see videos early, you see my comic out early when it comes instead of having to wait for free on Webtoon. But let's get into the first step of the process of how I make my comics. Let's start with the storyboarding. Most integral. Well, brainstorming before the storyboard. How are you working for y'all? We don't do this to storyboard, right? Look. Literally the storyboard, okay? That's what we got outlined. Alright. Look, okay, so for step one of making a comic, first we're gonna have to brainstorm. Unless you already have an idea, we should probably go ahead and get into the process of, you know, thinking about what we're going to make. I mean, because obviously, you know, you want to write a story, you want to make a comic, you want to make an art piece. You still have to have a concept or message. But let's just say what I want to depict in my comic as an idea. Let's say I want to make a food fight scene. Just a bunch of people in a cafeteria throwing food. So you've already got set. I mean, I've got a concept down. But the interesting thing about the way I make comics is that when I make my comic E-Kings, it's specifically for Webtoon. And so having a style where you're gonna have to scroll when you read, it affects how you draw and how you make your panels. And so what I'm doing is a style of just overlapping panels. Not that I don't know where I've seen it, but this is just how I make mine. Or I'll just kind of stack them up like Tetris. Like that's kind of how I do it. So now that we kind of have an idea of what we're going to be depicting, let's sit down and do it. We're going to record this a little unconventionally, meaning that this actually is going to be flipped when I edit it. So I'm going to have to record this one upside down. It's not going to make a lot of sense. But, damn. Okay, look. So now that we've got the premise of a food fight, this is not the right pen. Where's my real pen? My real pen. There it is. Look. So, if I had we're not gonna be making a full-fledged comic. I'm probably just gonna make a page from a comic of a food fight. But I'd have to work with the premise of first just getting like a layout. So, probably you're gonna need some characters. That's probably step one in terms of building a fight like this. So, let's just draw a guy, a concept of a guy. What is his purpose in this food fight? Keep the sketch messy and loose, just so I have some ideas to throw around. We've got this guy. And then maybe this guy. Actually, fuck it. I'm just gonna use E-King's characters for the scene. So, to make this scene of a food fight, you gotta start with first. Just a model panel. I just kind of make some pages to a standard for the ones I have in real life or like webtoon. And typically what I do is I'd start off probably with like just an introduction of the scene. So like maybe like just a full shot of the landscape or whatever setting you're working with. And so I'd probably have to go in with like a full, cafeteria setting. Maybe I draw a table here, have like a little horizon line set up, seats at the bottom. So you got this big ass lunch table, because that's where this food fight is gonna be. Just gonna use Eat King's characters, because that's gonna be like my best bet. People at a lunch table just eating. They've all got their trays. Got the wheels on the table. Got the bottoms of the chairs. There. And you maybe add like some sound effects at the top, for like chewing and stuff. Maybe even some for laughter. You see what I mean? So we're already building a scene from the beginning. We've gone from just a simple phrase, food fight, and now we're having to build a scene to just start off and introduce. And maybe I want, for my next page, after this little introduction, I have just a character here standing up. So you get like a full shot here. Maybe alongside a close-up of the hand with what they clutching. Maybe a tomato, a banana, something food related they about to throw. So here's a close-up right here of the hand. Maybe we get a close-up of their expression. So maybe like a shot of like a mouth expression or eyes. And then we get another pose where, cock the arm back, throw the arm. So now we have a pose in motion. So now we've already alluded to the next point of action with just this pose. I'm not no professional, and I probably don't sound like one either, but this is just how I do it. So like, I've introduced the scene, I've given context, people are eating, there's a cafeteria, wide shot, and I started off with what will be the catalyst for this food fight. I got a student here, full shot, so you know who you're looking at. There's a close-up of what they're gonna throw. There's an expression, no dialogue, by the way, and then action. I could add some like speech bubbles just for the hell of it, here. I could even use the speech bubbles to move the reader's eye. So like when I built this scene initially here, for this cafeteria scene, I could just use speech bubbles or even the sound effects to draw people's eyes amongst the page. Gives it a better read. And that way the context is better understood. And so, back to page 2 where the guy's like posing to throw whatever's in his hand. Well, I want to have like I'm gonna do a splat right here. So someone in their face is gonna get hit. It's gonna be a splat. And I'm gonna have that tomato in motion. And so I'll probably even have like a little after image effect with like speed lines to accompany. That way you see the trajectory of the tomato and your eye is led through the page. Now the placement of like sound effects, I've just now started to like really enjoy that with my comic. So like my favorite part won't even be like the inking or the coloring or the speech bubbles. Sometimes it's just adding sound effects to like build the image up as a better piece. And it's like, yeah, some people may not see comics as an art form, but it's like, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot you can do with it when you come to like just adding words and things of that nature. That's why I got the power system set up as it is. But y'all should read Eat Kings because I've been working hard on it. But we're on page 3 and now we have a result of the action. So we've been introduced to the scene, we see the catalyst, we see that point of action, and now we have the result. So I'll add some lettering, a splat, and you can see the tomato come in and smack the guy over here. So he just stands up and beams it at the guy. So he has his fist up, which is now the end of that action, and he flings it to him. Or I guess I'll change the pose once I like do it digitally, but like you'll get the result I'm trying to work with. And so you have a close-up of the table. You probably can see his tray. And since his face is in the foreground, I'll just block it in with darkness to really give it better 3 dimensions. Splat. Within 3 pages, I've now set the scene, which honestly may be better writing than for Eat Kings because I started Eat Kings when I had no clue what to do. But we have 3 pages. Introduction, action, result. There could be more if I wanted to add more, but I'm gonna show you these sketches. We're gonna draw them digitally, and you'll watch me panel them, maybe even ink and color them. I probably have to speed it up and yap over it. This is not a type of video I'm used to making, but I would like to help other people make the work that I do, because it's not that hard for me, but I definitely would have needed a step-by-step process on this. Because it's not that other videos may not have helped me, but it's it's not telling me in a way that I needed. So for me, I come in with an idea, I storyboard a scene, I kind of freeball it until I can get a better idea of it. And if you're really stuck, you'll have to kind of write it like a book and then write, physical scenes to accompany that. So let's get this on the other tablet. Because I'm already in the midst of E-Kings at the moment, but let's show y'all something different. Moving on. I might have to do a screen recording as well as a recording. Hopefully, if I do this right, then I should be able to screen record on my tablet, and then I should as well have, forgive me, I should as well be able to, let me duplicate that, and whatever I can't screen record, I'll probably just try to extract from Procreate itself, the time lapses, and just put it over this. Just trying to record a tablet while I draw is not, for some reason I just can't do it. I'm gonna need better software, in general, for the podcast, for everything and that other stuff. But anyway, by the time I edit this, the process should either be on the screen by now or not. Maybe my content is a bit lazy, but at least it's authentic. At least this isn't AI. This is a guy in his room with a camera that's telling you how to do this. I just hope this feels more comforting than the robots that they're trying to get us to learn all the shit from. And I don't think they're unuseful tools, but I don't want them to be in every facet of our lives. They don't need to be omnipresent, doing the things we should be doing while we still slave away. But let's adapt these pages. Let me grab my pen, because I need to draw. And I've gone through 3 Apple Pens because they're just so easy to lose. And so now the one I have is $9 and it's not Apple. So let's screen record this. I'm gonna adapt the first page, which is just one full shot. Now typically I don't really go in with a black for my sketches. I usually go in with a round brush, and I get a bluish green that's kind of dark, and that's what I use to sketch. So even the pens I use aren't anything imported. I'm just using what Procreate is giving me. And my pen work would probably be a lot better if I did have brushes built for myself. Is that a... Hold on. My camera seems unaffected, but... Well, damn, that's tough. Well, same difference, I guess. So, I'm gonna go in with a round brush. I'm gonna do some green, and we're just gonna adapt the panel. Since the first page is one panel, you won't have to do any overlapping panels with this one. But when I do my panels, I'll have separate layers for vertical lines and horizontal lines, because when you're paneling, at least the way with how I do it, it can get very easy to get messy with the erasing and things like that. It can get a hassle. But if I keep it on 2 different layers, it's easier to make sure that none of this is out of the order. I keep pausing, but I promise you, I'm a bit more sure than I look. And so usually when I'm paneling, I'll use the grid lines of Procreate and the iPad itself to keep these things level. That way, everything's not too lopsided, but a guy made it, so you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a bit imperfect. But at least it shows real effort. Even though right now, as you see, I'm not doing this panel by one layer, but that's just because this is one singular square, or one singular rectangle. I didn't even get that line straight. There it is. And one more. So now, once I erase like the excess lines, I'll have a decently sized panel. And if you're having trouble with Procreate, like if you're somebody that doesn't even do digital art and you want to make comics, you're gonna have to pick up the tablet and just play with brushes and try and even take photos of your traditional art and kind of use the brushes to draw over that. So like if you're an illustrator, that may be the best route to get yourself comfortable with digital, because that would have been advice I needed to take that transition. But if I didn't, I wouldn't have e-kings or an audience here to read it. And so now that we have page one panel, we can remove, well, let's add a layer, and then we can remove the sketch layer for the panel. And now all I have to do is go back in with a sketch layer of the actual scene. And so here, I'll do a little horizon line. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just need to establish a three-dimensional space. I could probably bring it up some. Have the table come out from the horizon. Stretch out here to the front. Just start positioning characters amongst the table. I hope it's not like overly sized though, because it's a whole issue with proportion. Like, I'm not the best artist. There's still so much I gotta learn. The table might be too massive. Maybe something like that. And then there's the seats here. That might be better. Like, I'm still getting used to fitting people in scale of things. It's like every day I'm still having to grow and learn as an artist too. There's so many imperfections in my work, but I don't need to start counting misdeeds. Won't do me any good. And I can add like just sketches of the sound effects at the top. I can also use the lasso tool just to wrap around it, and then use the arrow at the top, slide down with 3 fingers, and then duplicate what I just drew. That way I don't have to spend the time to do it again. It really does save me time when I just use that copy and paste with the lasso and the arrow tool. I don't know their names. I just watched a few videos to get a good hint. And even though this scene I built is fairly lopsided, I can adjust that. And if I were to sit here in ink and draw 3 pages in front of you, we would be here longer than you think. So I'm just gonna get a little sketch going, maybe color it some, and do sketches of the 3 pages. That might be our best bet, just so we're not here all day. Because like, I know people be like doing montages and shit in like their videos. That comes with like too much stilted acting. Not that I couldn't script my content, but I'm just gonna show you how I do this. There. Well, damn, none of my footage recorded. That's disappointing. That's why I have the time lapse. Let's see. Okay, good. There's page 1. Let's do page 2. Now, like I said, we can go back again through with a sketch layer. So we'll have the protagonist that I doodled, which I'm fairly sure you didn't even see it. One, I did it, but we'll sketch the guy here in the front, same as in accordance to this. So you can see page 2. You got the guy, and then the 3 panels along the side that show the progression of the action. So of course we'll have our catalyst character stand in the front in our little signature pose, holding a tomato. And we can maybe even add like some foreground elements to really build up the 3-dimensional nature. Because he's across the table from someone. But along the side, we'll still have our 3 panels to show the progression of this instance. Now let me take the guy out of the way. It may remove like the progression of sorts. So we'll have a zoom into the clutch of what he has, and then we'll zoom in of his expression, and then his pose, where he starts to wind up and throw the tomato. And then we'll just go another page over and panel the same. Now, when you are working on Webtoon, because like, since that's how I've got it going, I think there's a certain pixel count with how this whole thing is arranged. So you can't just use any canvas size on the tablet. You gotta like design canvases specifically to fit on Webtoon. So the quality may come out a bit worse or more pixelated than your art typically would if you are used to digital. So like my actual drawings typically have a higher quality than the stuff I upload on Webtoon, just because the pixel count can't be too high. Some do little resolution pixels. I'm not that kind of intelligent. I just draw. But I could do a kind of sideways shot. That way the tomato kind of circles around and hits bro. We can still get a little view here of him throwing it. But I'm pretty sure he's standing, so he'd be like, he just flings it at him like flies. And so now you have an interesting angle, and it feels 3-dimensional. Kind of have the guy's arm coming out because he's like falling. And then usually I'll come in with like a different pen size or pen color just so I can denote like dialogue. So right here you got the SP and then the LAT for splat. There. So now we have 3 pages sketched out. All that would really be next is to finish the paneling for the other 2, apply color, ink, and speech bubbles. But I think I'll just have to chop this up. That might be my best bet. So first, let's add some color, and then maybe I'll show you how I use my speech bubbles and my text. Now, let's apply some color and some speech bubbles. With the way I do E-Kings, I just add a lot of gradients whenever I don't typically want to do too much color work, but that's because, you know, a lot of things will occupy my time. Like, as much as I would like to draw all day, the world won't let me. And so my shortcut whenever I didn't want to fully have to color a page is, you know, I get my lasso tool and I just draw out a little perimeter. And then I go to the layer, I tap on this title, and I click alpha lock. And then from there, I can select another color, and only the space that I've drawn within will not be affected. So nothing outside of its bounds. And I can apply color, go to the adjustments layer, you know, a little wand at the top, and I'll just tap guise and blur. And I'll just kind of slide my pen until the gradient is where I want it to be. And so now the scene has a better tone, and it even feels like it has substance, just because of that switch in color. It helps me out. But let's skip to another page and just draw some dialogue. So like on page 2, where I've got the character standing up, about to wind up the throw, I could probably do like a quick little ink. Nothing too specific, nothing too detailed, but just something to get by. This shit was his hood on, this is arm going this way. And then here's him holding the tomato. So there's the ink. But typically I go a layer over. I use the brown brush for like everything. So even the speech bubbles are going to be using the same brush. But you don't have to do that. That's just how I do it. It saves me time, and I don't have to keep looking through shit. But my speech bubbles are very plain. Like, they look like comic style speech bubbles, even though my comic is kind of manga inspired. But I'll make simple shapes, and then once I get the outline established and the excess erased, I'll just go inside, swap my color to white, and use the fill bucket tool to fill in the speech bubble. And so now I have a speech bubble that's blank, but I can add some dialogue. I just gotta change the color, tap the gear icon at the top, and just add some text. That's basically how I do it. Like, I do it all on Procreate. And so I'll just choose the font I want. I use Jack Armstrong, because that's the only font, like, out of all the Procreates, like, pre-given, that pair well with my comics. It's the only one that looks like comic font. So I usually go with that one. I could write something like, what would I type? How about that? That's what I add to this little bit of dialogue. You ever seen a tomato fly? That'd probably be a good way to introduce the next action. And you can even kind of change the alignment. So like, you can change like how many letters are per level. If it's just one string. I could have sworn somebody was just reading my shit. Whatever. But you can also change how the words look. But if I wanted to add color, it wouldn't really be any different than going a layer underneath, coloring them up. I go another look. Well, bless me. Goddamn. I can go in, fix some of these panels. Let me decrease the brush size, just so I can add my panels. Have one layer specifically for vertical lines and another layer specifically for the horizontals. Yeah, my panels right now are a little lopsided, but I had to just show you how I do it. So we can erase all the horizontal lines in this layer, and now we have our boxes. Well, the excess of the horizontal lines. We're still gonna keep most of it. I don't know about most. You know what I mean, fuck. And then we can erase some of the verticals. And then from the bottom, you just kind of add another layer to fill in the color for that. And so I'll just kind of outline the perimeter of every panel, fill them in. typically works for me. And so, now off bat, I mean, as simple as it is, you now have a character, some artwork, and panels, which, and a speech bubble, which for the most part is damn near all you need for a comic. Not, obviously, you need writing proficiency and artistic mastery, but in a technical sense, a bunch of pages like this, it's simpler than I thought. And it should be simpler for you, I think. I promise you, everything about making comics, the beginning stuff is harder. Everything else is just refining an idea. You have to come up with an idea and refine it. And that process will show you if it's worth having. You get me? Or if you just haven't put enough effort into it. Well, I was trying to turn this thing off, but it'll stay on if it wants. How about we take a look at E-Kings for a second? Well, if my recordings are just gonna disappear, then I'll have to use the time lapses. Like, I actually have no choice. But let's take a look at E-Kings. This is what I got. Here it is. This is a chapter that's not even out on Patreon, and I would zoom in on the pages for you to look at. Like, cause I told you this is literally how E-Kings looks, and this ain't even out yet. My fault. This is obscene. Look, I do apologize that this presentation is a bit mismatched, and that my presentation can't be as professional as someone else's. But simply put, you might be here because you already have the idea, and so you may just be looking for the right push forward when it comes to pursuing your idea. Even if it looks bad, still give it a chance. I mean, because even now, my work isn't as refined as even the greats. But I put myself out there for people to receive, and I appreciate the people here that can watch now. But simply put, all these dreams started with Word and a piece of paper. I drew it down here, I transferred it to the iPad, I adapted, and then I tried to refine it as best as possible. And with every chapter that I'm putting out on my webtoon, I was able to get more proficient at it. Like, now I can plot these pages 10s at a time and get them done within a week, given the time. And so overall, this is less about what you're told and how to do it, and just more of how long you keep going at it. That's truly the best way to make comics and get better at them. But that's just what I know. Let's do a little outro. Oddly enough, with how this room is shaped, you really can't tell much of how this looks unless you follow me on TikTok or my Instagram. You can't even see the instrument that's just below the frame. But anyway, let me stop yapping. I hope you've at least taken away some decent knowledge from this video of how to make comics, or at least a step forward, you know, the storytelling, writing, art. But I won't hold you too long. If you want E-Kings or videos out early, you could go to my Patreon to support. That helps me out financially so I can keep this going. But you can also just subscribe on Webtoon and get the chapters out when they're free later. But anyway, you gotta make your daily doodle, and please get in the green.
I feel it, honestly. Can't say how I'm feeling inside. I wanna be sealed, but got too much pride. I wanna be sealed, but I'm really hip. Don't really like hip, but I tell you I tried. I did everything else but cry. I done smoke all my weed, young nigga on fried. You can see all this shit in my eyes.